Part of the principal program is the presentation of the Joseph Branch Professionalism Award. For those of you who are new to this bar, it bears repeating that that is the signal accomplishment and recognition of lawyers who belong to this bar. It's my pleasure now to introduce and recognize a member of this organization who really needs no recognition or introduction. He is recognized by everybody. Our 2004 Professionalism Award winner, Ed Gaskins, for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the association and guests. It really is a privilege to be here today to do this. It's, for me, the best of our meetings all year long because of what we do here. We have the privilege of recognizing each year an attorney whose ethics, professionalism, service to clients, to the community, and to the bar exemplify a model set for us by a great leader of this bar, Chief Justice Joseph Branch. And I say that knowing him both personally and professionally. I had the privilege of serving in the same church with him. For those of you who didn't know him, Chief Justice Branch was not a person of many words, but the words he spoke were very powerful. I can remember several deacons' meetings in which he sat silent, but before action was taken, someone would say, before we do this, we need to hear what Judge Branch has to say. And that's the kind of integrity that he carried with him and how he carried himself. We are privileged to have today his son, Jim Branch, who honors us with his presence. And Jim comes each year in order to be here to celebrate with the recipient of that award. This year's recipient is Carlyn Poole. Carlyn, would you stand? We're going to hear from Carlyn in a few minutes, but first we need to recognize Carlyn's guest today and also hear something about Carlyn. Carlyn has her two sons with her here today and their spouses, Henry Poole and his wife Tracy, if you'll stand and be recognized, and her other son, Hayes Poole, and his wife Kathy. There are also three special friends here today with Carlyn. I'd like to recognize them. Nancy Burns, who is a longtime friend of Carlyn's, and I understand they might have done some bicycling together over the years. Lynette Parker, who is a good friend and a spouse of one of the folks that's going to tell you something about Carlyn. And Leslie Silverstein, Leslie Silverstein, who is a good friend and the wife of one of the former recipients of this award. Thank you for being with us today. There are two former law partners that are here with Carlyn today. You will know their names. Harold Tharrington and Wade Hargrove. We're delighted that you could be here. And also a very special person to Carlyn, her assistant, Sandy Fisher. Sandy, would you stand? Where's Sandy Fisher? And then if the attorneys in Carlyn's firm would please stand for a moment and hold your applause for just a minute. Please stand. You know, I really think you must be doing something right there, because there are three members now of this firm who have received the Joseph Branch Professionalism Award, and we have the same firm now for 2 years in a row having a partner who has been honored with this award. So, congratulations to your firm. It's my pleasure now to introduce to you the two lawyers who will tell us something about Carlyn, and I will introduce each of them so that I won't interrupt. When number one finishes, number two follows behind, and we won't have interruptions with the introductions. Jaye Meyer is Carlyn's partner as well as friend, and practices family law with Carlyn. Jaye is a graduate of that newly found football power, Wake Forest, as well as Carolina Law School. You'll also hear from John Parker, who is a graduate of UNC and the University of Tennessee Law School. And John was on the bench, on the district court bench, when Carlyn began practicing law, and gave her mentoring and encouragement, and has continued to be a close friend as they both practice family law. So we look forward to hearing from Jaye and John.
I am here in a light-hearted way to tell you some things about Carlyn Poole that you might not know. And the first thing that you might not know about Carlyn Poole from looking at her is she is tough. Carlyn is tough. Years ago, Carlyn and I would do some bicycle riding together on a routine basis, and she had this route up north of Hillsboro that was beautiful. You'd go by, these wooded roads and farms. Now, if you've ridden your bike, you know that if you're going to ride past farms, you're going to ride past farm dogs. They are large, they are bored, they don't want you there. And there was, on this route that Carlyn picked out, there was this one particular dog at this one particular farm who would chase us every time. And I asked Carlyn, I asked her if she would change the route so we didn't have to go by it, but Carlyn was not going to be intimidated by a dog. And she told me no, that I just had to pedal faster to get past the dog. Which brings up something else. Carlyn's a lot smarter than most of y'all are, or smarter than I am. She knew that she didn't have to pedal faster than the dog could run. She just had to pedal faster than I could. So you may have heard, but may not really know, that when Carlyn was, I think, 60, she took 2 months off of work to ride her bicycle across country. She rode from, I believe, San Diego to St. Augustine. And when she got back, I asked her what was the hardest part of the trip. Here are the things that Carlyn didn't say. She didn't say that the hardest part of the trip was going over the mountains to get out of California. She didn't talk about the deserts in Texas or the deserts in New Mexico, and she didn't talk about days of cycling in the driving rain. She just looked at me and said, "Jaye, you would never have made it through Louisiana. Too many dogs." Here's the second thing you might not realize about Carlyn Poole. She takes her responsibilities and your responsibilities very seriously. A couple years ago, she volunteered to be the editor for a family law desk book that was to be published by the North Carolina Bar Association. And she selected really the finest family law attorneys from throughout the state and asked them each to write a chapter. I will tell you that these volunteer authors had no idea what they were getting into. Carlyn spent about 125 hours on this volunteer editing project. She went over every chapter with a fine-tooth comb. She made punctuation and grammar changes as only Carlyn can. See, the people from my firm are laughing because they know what that means. She made extensive notes about how each person could improve the substance of their chapter. And in one case, Parently just sent back a note saying, "You're going to have to redo this." Um, so I got some phone calls from some frustrated volunteer authors who said things like, I felt like she was grading a term paper for me. I can't believe she's making me rewrite the whole thing. So when I went to talk to Carlyn about it, her response was, well, if they signed up to do it, they had a responsibility to do it right. And that the book was important because it would be used by new lawyers who needed to have it in order to learn good habits. And besides, she wasn't going to put her name on anything sloppy. The third thing that you might not realize about Carlyn, you might not realize how wise she is. I have learned that at a firm that practices family law across the street, they have given her the nickname of Yoda. Because, and this is true, if you call Carlyn with a question, she always knows the right answer, but she makes you feel like you figured it out yourself. Another attorney who frequently calls on Carlyn to mediate told me she calls her the laser beam, because Carlyn immediately cuts through to the crucial issue, dissects and analyzes it, and lays it out on the table for everybody to see in a way that they never thought of it before. So I was trying to think up how to tie this up for you all and to talk about an attorney who is tough and conscientious and wise. And as I was actually thinking about this, I had the opportunity to speak to a former client of Carlyn's. And she said, Jaye, I'm so glad you're talking to me about this. I want to tell you the story of my trial with Carlyn as my attorney. And she talked to me about a long, winding trail to litigation, waiting for a trial date. And she spoke of the particular bond that she felt with Carlyn as they were getting ready to go into trial, and how good and how confident she felt with Carlyn there with her in the courtroom. And she said, even though I don't have a good idea of how this is supposed to go, when Carlyn started her cross-examination, I knew it was right on. In this client's words, she said, it was not sneering or contemptuous. It was professional and eloquent. It got the job done, and when the trial was over, we won on every point. And the client went on to say that a few years later, she ran into the judge in the grocery store, who complimented Carlyn's performance and said that Carlyn had turned in after that trial the finest written summation that he had ever seen. And that client's closing comments to me were, what more could you want? And so I've really thought about it, and after practicing law with Carlyn for 15 years, that's what I have to say. What more could you want? Thank you. Congratulations, Carlyn.
I am so happy and excited to be here today. It is a really great honor, and Carlyn, thank you for asking me to do this. In September of 1969, I attended my first Wake County Bar Association meeting, and I thought it was some of the best-looking people I'd ever seen in my life, and by golly, you hadn't changed a bit. From up here, you really look good. But you know, there's some people like Al Purrington and Dan Blue that the older they get, the better they look. So, professionalism. This is a rhetorical question, and I don't expect you to answer it, but what is it? It has many faces, but similar or same characteristics. Is it what we show to others? Is it what is inside us? Is it both? Can we be professional and not be perceived as being professional? Or can we be perceived as being professional but still not be professional? Is it how others see us? Is it how we see ourselves? Whatever professionalism is, we think it's important because we talk about it, and we have professionalism committees, and we give professionalism awards. To me, Professionalism involves integrity, action, restraint, ethics. Edward O. Wilson, maybe some of you are familiar with him and read some of his books. His biography is a wonderful book. He's a world-renowned biologist, teacher, professor, Pulitzer Prize-winning author, Southern by birth and temperament, and 1985 wrote, "Ethics is but an illusion fobbed off on us by our genes to get us to cooperate with each other. It's the way our biology enforces its ends by making us think and believe that there's a higher code to which we are all somehow subject." Well, maybe that's true. I don't know. Maybe it's not. But if there is such a higher code, it has to be personified in Carlyn Poole. In 1979, Carlyn Poole first appeared in front of me in the Wake County Domestic Court. I'd been a judge a little over 3 years, and a lot of really good, fine lawyers that appeared in front of me. And I thought I could tell who was a really good lawyer and who had experience. And I perhaps might not say this about a male lawyer, but I remember distinctly Carlyn appearing in front of me in a finely tailored chestnut brown suit and a white blouse, and she looked professional. She captured my attention. She was well prepared, she was logical, she was persuasive, she was well spoken, and I was literally taken by her presentation and her presence. I remember distinctly that I was almost mesmerized by her. She was different. Of course, she had been an English teacher, and she had presented herself in front of classes for many years and had that going for her. But I thought she was a seasoned trial lawyer, and I later was very surprised to learn it was her first trial. Since that time, I have had many cases with Carlyn Poole, fortunately. I have hiked many miles with Carlyn Poole, and I have biked many miles with Carlyn Poole. And when we're in the Smokies and we're going up a hill, she's always 20, 30, 40 yards ahead of me on the trail. I'm honest, that's no exaggeration. She's always ahead of me on the trail. And when we ride the bicycle, like we did last weekend around Lake Mattamuskeet, she was ahead of me. And in the morning when we're packing our gear after we've had breakfast, and I'm getting all my stuff into my backpack ready to go after breaking camp, she's waiting for me 5 minutes. Carlyn is always ahead of me. And I've known and I've tried lots of cases over the last 37 plus years with a lot of fine lawyers, but Carlyn's ahead of every one of them. So whether it's, as Jaye said, she's riding a bicycle across the United States from coast to coast, or she's writing a book or a manuscript or a brief or caring for her grandchildren, Carlyn is always ahead. Her confidence inspires confidence and competence in others. This competence that she has, this self-confidence she has, it doesn't come just from being well-researched, which she always is, or meticulously organized or highly motivated, but it comes from an inner core that, as Yates said, always holds. Things just don't fall apart around Carlyn. As I said, I'm so fortunate to have had her as opposing counsel in so many cases over these many years, and we have had some extremely difficult, complex, substantial cases. We have sometimes spent 2-3 years, but we have settled every case we have ever had, and it's the only lawyer in Wake County or anywhere else that I have practiced with for so many years with whom I've settled every case I've ever had. And those of you that practice family law will witness and testify for me, and what I'm saying is true. It's amazing. I have never had to try a case against Carlyn Poole. On many occasions, I have observed her lead others farther and farther away from resistance, or farther and farther away from entrenched resistance to her position by gentle, kind persuasion. She makes things seem easy. She leads by example, understanding, and she has a keen discerning intelligence. To only slightly paraphrase Alexander Pope, Carlyn, by changing the masculine to the feminine, she teaches as others as if she taught them not, and proposes things unknown as things forgot. She is never drawn into confrontations. She is always sensible. Now, instinct is maybe difficult or impossible to define. It might very well mean understanding other people. Carlyn understands and knows how to work with people. Everyone reacts differently, but Carlyn amazingly copes and responds instantly to others in a way to always get the best from them. She solves problems. She does not cause problems where problems don't exist. She is as real a human being as I have known in my life. She has an incredibly special gift, and she uses that gift with care, respect, and in a non-judgmental way in the service of her clients, the legal profession, her friends, and her family. I don't know of anyone, anywhere, more deserving of this award than Carlyn Poole. She cannot escape her fate from being special. We are fortunate to know her, to live with her, and to work with her, the most competent, the most honest, the most talented, the most admired and respected lawyer I know. My very close and dear and ever faithful friend, Carlyn Poole.
Carlyn, before I make this award to you, I just need to add my brief comments. I was interviewing prospective associates for my firm when Carlyn graduated from law school and was looking for her first job. And Carlyn and I were talking. We both remember that interview. And our firm did not, and I still don't want to have anything to do with family law practice. I appreciate those of you who do, but that's not been something I've been interested in over the years. And Carlyn revealed, and this is, again, very consistent with her integrity over the years. She knew our law firm did not practice family law, but when I asked her, what are you interested in, she said family law. Well, as a result of that, we did not hire Carlyn, but I still remember the discussion that the partners had after several of us have interviewed her. And we said, you know, she has great potential. And Carlyn, I just want to thank you for making such a profit out of us. It is a distinct pleasure to award to you the highest honor that the Wake County Bar can bestow on any attorney, the Joseph Branch Professionalism Award.
This is like my Stanley Cup, you know. It's a good idea. I've known about this for a while and had some time to absorb it. And I have all of these little scribbled notes that I've written to myself about what I wanted to say and thought about saying. If I hadn't had a little time to think about it, though, I think I would just be standing up here saying, this is just great. This is just great. This is super. Thank you, thank you. Years ago, Wade Smith and I would sometimes sit in law student interviews together, and he would often set the scene for a question that he would ask the students who were interviewing, and he would have them picture being honored at the end, towards the end of his or her career of each student, and then he would say, and what would you want said about you at that time if people were speaking about you? And I think I now know the answer to that. It's just what Jaye said, and it's just what John said. So thank you all very much. I heard that Jaye was planning a skit, so I'm glad that she chose to speak instead of presenting a skit. I've worked with Jaye for around 15 years, and no one could ask for a better person to be with or a better lawyer to work with. And I've known John longer than that. He's the first judge I appeared before in district court, and more than anyone has encouraged my involvement in bar activities, and he has the most generous spirit of anyone you could hope to know in sharing knowledge and opportunities. As many of you know, being a lawyer is my second career. I come from several generations of school teachers, and I was a school teacher, as I'm sometimes reminded about that. And in thinking about what I wanted to say today, I started thinking about how I've learned to be a lawyer and what I've learned about practicing law and about how we learn things. And of course, we learn from our parents. We learn everything from our parents, from the importance of truthfulness and honesty and being responsible about things, to things like how to brush our teeth, how to play dominoes in my case. So we learn many, many things from our backgrounds. We learn from other lawyers, not just the lawyers in our law firms. We learn about the importance of treating every client as an important client and understanding the seriousness and importance of our work. Again, we learn things that are very minor in some ways about where to sit in the courtroom, when to stand, how to address the judge. But as I thought about how we learn things, I realized that we learn a huge amount, and I learned a huge amount about being a lawyer. I learned from my clients. I've had over 4,000 clients in the 27 years I've been practicing law. It's wonderful about the records computers keep, but there were some before computers started. But anyway, I've had the opportunity to be taught by these clients, and sometimes people talk about practicing family law and they say, oh, how could you do that? How could you practice family law? That just seems like you would see people who are just, mad at each other and fussing at each other. And that's true in some ways, but you also get to see people who are behaving with grace and courage and determination and integrity and generosity in a very, very difficult situation. So I'm reminded that people come with problems and serious problems. Always they're depending on us, but we learn from them about how to meet these problems. One of the things I've learned from clients in practicing family law that's so easy to forget is that returning phone calls are very important. And it's important to this very simple thing makes people think, what a good lawyer I have if they just get a phone call back as soon as possible. I've had clients say to me, oh, I have been sitting here waiting for your call, And when someone says, I have been sitting here waiting for your call, that is all one needs to hear to remember that returning phone calls is important. And if the call cannot be returned, it's so easy to have someone in the office make the return call and say, here's why it can't be returned right now. She'll call you at whenever, such and such a time. I've been reminded by clients of the job we have of being sure we remember their perspective and understanding the importance of their perspective. There was a young mother in my office, and we were discussing a number for a compromise support payment for monthly support. And we were very close together in negotiations, and I said, as to the offer that had been made to us, well, it's only $50 a month less than what you wanted. Assuming that was not much, she looked at me and very nicely said, Carlyn, that may not be important to you, but it is to me. And those are the sorts of things that when we remember those words from our clients in those situations, that we learn great lessons. We just need to remember what it's like to be a client, what it's like to have a problem, what it's like to be depending upon someone else to solve that problem or try to solve that problem. I think there are only a few things that we must keep in mind about our work. Nothing magic about them. I think we must do our work as well as we can. We're not perfect, but all we have to do is try to do for each person who comes to us the best that we can do. And some days we do a better job than others, but we can only do our best. We have to be honest about things. There's absolutely no question about that. We can't cut corners about things. And I think we have to be kind. That translates into, I think the words we ordinarily use are professional courtesy. But we just need, if we're kind to other people, generally they're going to be kind back to us. So it works. It's so easy in some ways because we just need to treat other people the way we would like to be treated and remember the situations they're in when they come to us. We are privileged to be lawyers. It is a privilege. Sid Eagles made this same point in his message this week in the Bar Flyer, which is a message we should read and reread. But we are privileged to get to go to work and be presented with interesting and challenging and changing questions almost every day. We're presented with opportunities to do some things that help people, that make a difference to people. We are privileged to get to work around people who are very smart and who are fun to be with. And the good thing is that we generally get paid for all of that. Our responsibility with all of that privilege are the things I just talked about, to always try to do our very best, to remember our ethical obligations and the standards of professionalism that are stated in our local creed particularly. I have been so fortunate in so many ways. I'm fortunate in my friends, as you could see from John and Jaye. I was fortunate in the opportunity to have the opportunity to go back to law school. It was very easy in many ways to just stay right here in Raleigh and drive back and forth to Chapel Hill. The traffic was not nearly as bad 30 years ago. I've been fortunate in my family, my extended family in Texas, my wonderful sons who were 6 and 8 when I started back to school. They at some point were remembering going over to the law school occasionally and wondering if they could find the Matchbox cars they buried in the dirt there in Chapel Hill someplace. I'm fortunate that I found my way to practicing law. This was not my lifelong ambition, but I love being a lawyer. It beats teaching school. And I like teaching school. I'm fortunate in the law firm that I've been with for 27 years, and the people who were there when I first started, the two Smith brothers and Harold and Wade Hargrove, and with the attorneys who have been there over the years, so many I see who are here in the front and others scattered about here. I'm fortunate in Sandy Fisher. Sandy is so good at what she does that one would have to work hard to be unprofessional with Sandy watching over things. Harold gave me the first file I had to work on the first day I walked into work. And 2 weeks later, I had nothing to show for whatever he had asked me to do, and I was afraid that was going to be the end of my law career. But I did learn that that case was complicated, and it breathed its last only a couple of years ago. So, and involved many lawyers besides me. I worked so closely with Wade Hargrove when I first started that we both learned a lot about sales tax in those years. And I learned and relearned how to write a letter from Wade Hargrove. So all of that makes the law firm I'm with a very special place, that high quality of care. And then as I walked in this morning, I was greeted with all these signs all over the law firm giving special names to every area in the law firm. And so there is now in our building, if you all would care to come see, the Carlyn Poole Grand Entranceway. That's the back door. There is the Carlyn Poole Pedestrian Mall. That's the little hall down to my office. The Carlyn Poole Executive Conference Center, which is a conference room, of course. We have a lot of plants in the office. There's the Carlyn Poole Rainforest and the Carlyn Poole Botanical Garden and the Carlyn Poole Information Dissemination Center, which are, of course, mailboxes, and more. It goes on. But that points out, I think, why it's both challenging and fun to work where I work. The most good fortune I've had is in finding my way to Wake County to practice law, and we all share in that good fortune. The high standards of practice in this bar simply cannot be compared. The people in this bar have a spirit of generosity in helping new attorneys. I could cite example after example of attorneys who were on the other side of cases when I first started to practice, and they could advocate strongly for their clients, but at the same time give me gentle nudges about maybe you really don't want to go about that in that way, sort of thing. And I think that still exists. Most times all we have to do is listen and learn in Wake County, and we'll know the right way to go about things with the lawyers here. When I read the list of lawyers who have received this award and look out at those who are here, I'm reminded of all that Justice Branch stood for and what his example is meet to all of us. My appreciation for this award only grows and deepens, and this is a very, very happy and a very, very proud occasion for me. And so I can only say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks,
Wonderful.
Sid. Thanks. I'm gathering my things.
Congratulations and thank you, Carlyn. Among the other attributes that perhaps were not explicitly mentioned, isn't it refreshing to find someone so accomplished who does not take themselves quite so seriously? Thank you. I'm glad that the weather was foul, because with this kind of program, if the weather had been decent, we'd have had standing room only out in the parking lot. So I think then we are adjourned. Thank you for being here. Here.